Hi, I'm Dodo Dayao. I'm the director of Midnight in a Perfect World, and this is Direk Takes. Midnight in the Perfect World started out as a short film idea for omnibus project about the current state of the Philippines. But it sort of evolved into a feature as it went along.
Walang aalis na hindi nagpapaalam.
Midnight in the Perfect World is set in an alternate reality Manila. And a perfect world in the title isn't meant to be ironic. It really is Manila as a perfect world. Except that there's an urban legend that goes around about a mysterious blackout that happens after midnight in random areas of the city. And the legend goes that if you get caught out in one of those blackouts, you're never heard from again. There are safe houses that are described in the film as houses without windows, where you can take refuge in if you're too far from home or it's too late for you to find shelter somewhere else. Then all you need to do is find one of these safe houses and stay until sunrise, and you're safe.
Wala kang makikitang bahay na walang bintana dito sa Maynila. Unless yun talaga hinahanap.
And this scene is set inside the safe house already. There's a bathroom in the safe house. This is the first encounter with the first instance that there's something wrong inside the safe house. And one of the characters, Jinka, played by Glyza De Castro, goes to use it after the initial shock of getting caught in the blackout and then finding the safe house and then missing one of their friends and all that. So she goes in here and she sees something strange, which is this strangely geometrically perfect hole in the wall. There's a lot of things that happen between Glyza's character and the hole, but this is her first encounter with it. The reason why I singled this particular sequence out is because of it actually looks very, very real. And it sort of like goes against the sinasabi sa title na we already live in a perfect world, because it's the sort of grimy toilet that you sort of expect from present day Manila. The first shot we see in the sequence, Glyza's character is looking at this ball. It looks like a marble, but it actually plays a very, very crucial part in the whole narrative from beginning to end. It not just the actual thing that she's holding, but the existence of that thing in the world actually informs the whole film. I won't say anything more beyond that because that's going into spoiler country. But this is supposedly an opiate or a drug that for some reason, she keeps looking at it. I think there's 3 or 4 scenes in which she stares at the pill. I wanted it to look like, unlike any existing kind of drug, but also sort of like make it plausible that it's something that you can sort of ingest. This is sort of like a shot that sort of echoes throughout the rest of the film. You see Glyza's character staring at 1 or 2 pills at some point during the whole film, and it sort of became a visual mnemonic for her character. So instead of like shooting this coverage style, like breaking down the scenes as scripted and setting up different angles for us to choose from eventually, we decided to just do it in one take. This is just one of many scenes that we sort of collapsed into one and made into a single take. And I think it also helps because we decided on it once we saw the set. Once we saw that we could actually move around and have the characters, just block the characters and just follow them with the camera. Yeah, personal note lang on the set. Ewan ko kung napansin nyo that it's very grimy. Personally, I didn't want to step into the set kasi I actually felt how dirty it was. And there were times when I was reluctant to let Glyza go down on the floor, and she goes down on the floor a lot because of what happens. So that's a personal note on my end. Hindi ko nga siya hinahawakan minsan yung yung walls pag pumapasok ako to check. But a third factor in that is yung decision namin early on to use to not rely too heavily on VFX. Kaya in this particular scene, we actually had the hole cut out, and we actually had props used. Yung hole, yan, we had, I think, 2 or 3 panels with different size holes. So I can sort of like choose on set which one to use. We ended up using this particular size all throughout the film. But it's a fake wall, and if you're wondering what's on the other side, it's the art department, basically. And again, instead of having CGI create the hole for us or having CGI help us with the props, we actually created props for this scene, because when she reaches into the hole and pulls out a bunch of human teeth, those are not real teeth, but those are real props. So again, it falls down to the decision that we would be like most of the supernatural elements of the film will be on camera. The scene that you're watching now was broken down into several sequences. So ang intention originally was to shoot it coverage style. But when we saw the set, and because nga yung rig namin afforded us yung fluidity na hindi namin ini-expect na magkakaroon kami, we sort of came up with the idea of just blocking the actors and just moving the camera and following them around. So this is like 4 sequences collapsed into one. This is the scene where they first get into the safe house and they receive a phone call from one of their friends who gets stuck outside. Even the wall design was actually, we had a choice of using different wallpaper designs for each section of the set, but we ended up just using one. And even the way it's built sort of makes them look very similar, almost uniform. And it's almost very Victorian. That was also intentional. I think we wanted it to be a sort of a neutral place aesthetically. It doesn't feel like Manila. It doesn't feel Asian at all. This was all meant to make it feel na you're not sure where you are. Yeah, talking about costumes, even Miss Bing's costume sort of feels like a throwback to what we assume people wore to parties in the 70s. It's very glitzy and sort of very glamorous in a way. And I think it's also deliberate to give her this sort of very Imelda tinge to her. The character itself is sort of like a cipher. There's really no backstory to her. You're not really sure what she is. You're not quite sure if she's on their side or on somebody else's side, or if she's on anyone's side at all. I think that was deliberate. And when I was talking to Miss Bing about it, I didn't give her much because I wanted her to feel that sense of ambiguity as well. Originally kasi the script wasn't really written, or at least the treatment wasn't to use movement too much. Kasi in our last film together, we were also shooting in a single location, but it was mostly just static shots and slight coverage. But when we were discussing the film more and more, it became clear to us that it was gonna be a film that had a lot of movement. In many ways, yung long take is sort of like a default for me, kasi medyo sanay ako to do that. I was doing that with all my previous films, more or less. The difficulty lang when you're working with more characters than I was used to was the timing is right. Kasi this particular scene here, umiikot yung camera pero there's a lot of dialogue and there's a lot of things happening. There's also expository nuggets being thrown into the whole scene. So you had to consider all of that. Plus yung timing nung ikot din, it has to be very precise.
Last chance ko na, Tommy. Magkakaalaman na eh. Okay, kaya radio silence muna. Hintayin niyo yung tawag ko. Ako ang tatawag sa inyo, okay? Huwag niyo akong tawagan.
Please go see it without any expectations and hopefully it'll be weird and wonderful and strange and hindi kayo makakatulog pagkatapos yung panoorin. Let us know what you feel about it. You can go to our Facebook page and our Instagram page, Midnight in a Perfect World Film, and just throw us your comments, good, bad, and